The moment my new supervisor tossed my 15-year career into the trash in front of the entire office, he had no idea he was actually triggering a multi-million-dollar disaster. He looked me dead in the eye and announced that a temporary college intern could handle my entire workload with minimal training. I did not argue or scream, because I knew the digital time bomb I built was already beginning to tick down. My name is Valerie, and until that exact second, I was the sole guardian of the regulatory framework keeping our enterprise operational. My supervisor, a smug man named Derek who wore expensive suits and possessed absolutely zero technical knowledge, wanted to look efficient for the upper executives. By firing me so publicly, he thought he was trimming unnecessary corporate fat from the payroll. Instead, he just pulled the foundation out from underneath the entire structure. For over a decade, I watched department heads and chief technology officers come and go while I quietly maintained the ancient compliance matrix. The system was a chaotic web of outdated software modules that I single-handedly rescued from complete collapse years ago. Nobody else understood the delicate code because it was never documented in the official company archives. The mainframe only recognized my specific authorization signature, acting like a guard dog that trusted only one master. Derek wanted to modernize everything without understanding how the machinery actually functioned behind the scenes. He immediately assigned my duties to a young intern named Chloe, who could barely navigate the basic database interfaces. As I slid my security badge across the mahogany conference table, the room fell into a terrified silence. My colleagues looked at me with pure panic, knowing the impending catastrophe that Derek was completely blind to. I walked out of the building into the afternoon sun, feeling a strange sense of serenity washing over me. My personal mobile phone was already buzzing constantly with frantic messages from coworkers asking if the department was doomed. I chose to power off the device, refusing to absorb their desperate anxiety. I drove home in absolute silence, knowing that my forced departure had just initiated an automated sequence that could not be reversed. The primary issue was that the federal government required a certified human custodian to log into the mainframe every single day. The moment I returned to my house, I opened my personal computer to finalize my departure protocols. I officially logged into the administrative portal from my private network and clicked the option to revoke my master security token. The screen immediately flashed a bright red warning about an impending lockdown sequence. Without a verified replacement custodian possessing historical signature parity, the network would automatically assume the database was unmonitored. This meant the software would soon stop validating any financial transactions, freezing over $200 million in active government accounts. I confirmed the revocation anyway, watching the countdown clock begin its silent march towards zero. Derek believed he was saving money, but he was actually dismantling the corporate lifeline. On Monday morning, Derek walked into the corporate headquarters with immense confidence, completely unaware of the digital rot spreading through his department. He gave a cheerful speech to the remaining staff, telling them that the transition would be incredibly simple. Meanwhile, Justin, a junior engineer, was already staring at his monitor with a pale face. The terminal was already spitting out cryptic error messages regarding expired tokens and an undefined custodian state. Chloe was visibly sweating as she repeatedly clicked on a user interface that refused to respond to her commands. She explained to Derek that the vault was completely locked, but he simply dismissed her concerns as typical legacy noise. He believed everything could be resolved with a basic software update or a quick call to the help desk. His profound ignorance was the exact fuel that this disaster required to grow. By Tuesday morning, the internal alarms finally reached the upper levels of management, causing the chief technology officer to enter the department in a visible panic. A man named Arthur, who usually remained perfectly calm, stormed directly into the office belonging to Derek. Arthur demanded to know why the central registry had not synchronized with the federal database for over 24 hours. The entire organization was rapidly approaching a legal cliff. At the exact same time, a corporate attorney named Brooke was looking at the quarterly compliance reports with deep concern. She called Derek immediately, asking if the custodial handover for Valerie had been legally finalized with the government. Derek lied smoothly, claiming that Chloe had the entire situation under complete control. Brooke warned him that the system was showing a high-risk flag that could halt all operations. Arthur threw his laptop onto the desk, showing Derek that the federal network had already rejected 3 consecutive data uploads. If the issue continued, the government would legally suspend their authorization to operate under federal guidelines. Derek tried to claim that Valerie was just a middle-tier administrator whose duties were easily replaceable. Arthur looked at him with cold fury, demanding to know why my name was still on every active document. While the corporate office erupted into total chaos, I was sitting comfortably on my back porch, enjoying a warm cup of herbal tea. I opened a fresh message window on my personal computer, addressing it to a federal inspector named Raymond Vance. Raymond and I had worked together for many years to maintain strict regulatory standards. I attached a formal document proving that my employment had been terminated without any qualified successor. By Wednesday, the entire corporate infrastructure was practically grinding to a painful halt as the severe consequences materialized. Procurement tried to clear a massive bulk transaction, but the frozen system immediately rejected the digital transfer. Over $1 million became trapped in a digital limbo because there was no valid human signature attached. The federal departments began sending urgent inquiries, demanding to know why the authentication logs were completely empty. My former colleagues sent desperate messages through private applications, begging to know if I had intentionally sabotaged the system before leaving. I told them that I merely followed standard operating procedures to the letter. Derek had never poured any effort into learning how the security matrix functioned, assuming his corporate authority trumped hard-coded software rules. The structure was collapsing under the weight of his own arrogance, just as I anticipated. It was nearly 8 in the evening when the personal telephone of Derek finally rang with an ominous tone. The chief executive officer, a stern leader named Garrison, was on the other end of the line demanding immediate answers. Garrison had just discovered that the entire enterprise was locked out of the primary compliance vault. Derek tried to explain the problem away, but the technical reality was completely absolute. The engineering team confirmed that the system could not be bypassed because I had hardened the defense protocols years prior. The only way to restore the data flow was for the official custodian to manually authorize a new signature. Derek realized with absolute horror that he was completely powerless to fix the catastrophe he created. He opened his electronic mail and typed a desperate message to my private address, begging for assistance. A second message arrived immediately afterward from Garrison himself, asking if I could urgently return to negotiate a new contract. I stared at the flashing text on my screen while taking a slow sip of red wine, choosing to leave the messages completely unanswered. The lesson was incredibly clear, because true value is built on silent expertise, not loud corporate buzzwords. They finally understood my worth, but the countdown had reached 0, and the silence was absolute.